Good morning,
Good morning.
my friends. I hope you guys are having a great Saturday. I wanted to share this training with all of you guys that follow me here on YouTube because I think it's important for you guys to learn. And, you know, it's important to know this very part of your telesales process, regardless if you're picking up the phone to make appointments, your work and life transfers, especially. But overall, if you're having a CRM, so if you have a CRM system that you purchased on your own, then you want to listen up here, okay? So today I've invited a new agent partner, Jimmy Chan, and yesterday we got into our training. We had some tech issues there in the morning, so we agreed to work a couple hours this morning on a Saturday to help him with his learning curve so he can be ready to start selling insurance over the telephone come Tuesday or Wednesday. So, with that said, I would like to ask Jimmy before I dive into this training. Jimmy, can you share a little bit about yourself to everybody? Whatever you'd like to share of your insurance experience and why truly you're here learning on a Saturday, if you don't mind.
Yes, primarily I've been doing Medicare or specifically Medicare Advantage in and 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 this would be a great um opportunity to earn commissions upfront because Medicare, we all know, is renewal driven and with
Right.
all the CMS guidelines, so obviously this could be a great gateway to that, or you can just stay with file expense and you know that would work too. It just depends on your perspective and how you want to run your business, basically.
And adding to that, Jimmy, like I told you, I have an agent that sells final expense, but then also helps his clients with Medicare options. So it can definitely be done. Now, Jimmy, I know you're just getting started with training. I know today's our CRM training, but can you share with everybody what you've been able to see so far in terms of the lead quality? Because I know now with the training, you're able to see behind the scenes. Can you share with anybody that's watching what you've seen, sir?
Yes, the quality of the leads are very high, and and of course, we are here to bring it to the finish line. It doesn't sell themselves. We That is what this is about, and because of the platform, the closing would be much higher than otherwise, and also the compliance is also critically important. Obviously nobody want to get sued.
So again, compliance is obviously important. And with inbounds, guys, you avoid that completely because people are calling you. But the quality is good, correct, Jimmy?
Yes.
Most of these people are looking for what?
Insurance to cover themselves or loved ones.
They're calling in. But like Jimmy said, it's up to you to know how to make a sales presentation, keep them on the phone, and close. And that's why we're here today. But today is going to be a little bit different. Our training here today involves our CRM and do not call registries, DNC. Now, for some of you, you're probably asking, but man, I thought you just said there's no compliance issue. There's no compliance issue with our lead because the customer's calling us. So in terms of the do not call, TCPA, it's a mute issue because the customer is calling us. But today's training is to show you guys where you can get in trouble if you're working a CRM, even if you're working inbounds. And let me start off by explaining why. Our business, and I'm going to share my screen here. Our business basically revolves around technology, right, Jimmy?
Yes.
And for all of you guys watching, this is the CRM that we provide to all of our customers when they buy their first set of 25 leads or any agent that works with us. This is the CRM that they receive. Now, the CRM, we partnered with Track Drive because it allows an agent to receive inbound calls. It allows an agent also to call people. Other CRMs, all they do is just manage the contact, but there's no way to dial, and there's really no way to use it as an active phone system. Track Drive does. For teams, it allows the team manager to review all of their sub-agents' calls, recordings, etc. Now, how does this tie into do not call registry? Well, every single lead that we generate, it's an inbound, Jimmy. So the calls are coming into your CRM. Now, at this point in time, it's legitimate, it's compliance, TCPA, DNC. You don't have to worry about none of that. But the problem comes with this. Our CRM system typically has an API built into it. So if a phone call comes in and it catches that it's on the national do not call registry or state do not call registry, it takes it out before you get the phone call as a safety measure so you don't end up with a DNC violation. But unfortunately, with our CRM, it blocks calls that are coming in from inbound callers of customers interested in talking to me and you right now, Jimmy. So what does it do? It's blocking out a big number of these people that are actually on the DNC. Does that make sense, Jimmy?
Yes.
So because it's doing that, we have to remove that API system or else we're not going to get no connections. Yesterday in the morning, for example, by accident, the API system went on and we didn't get calls for an hour and we were wondering why. And we went and checked and the API was on there and a bunch of calls were being blocked. So Jimmy, our CRM does not have an API system that blocks out your lead, okay, from a DNC because it's a customer initiated call. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
So what do? Well, let me share something with you why this is a big deal. Our business is really based on follow-up, Jimmy. Tons of follow-up. And if you notice here, these are statistics, national statistics. 2% of sales are made on the first contact. Obviously, for us on the inbounds, we're seeing over 20% on first contact. Listen here, 3% of sales are made on the second contact. 5% of sales are made on the third, 10% of sales are made on the fourth, and 80% of sales are made on the fifth to 12th contact. So it's obvious, correct, that a lot of your business is going to depend on how good you are at nurturing your database as you build this pipeline. You follow, Jimmy?
Yes.
Which requires what? A follow-up call. So let's say right out the gates, you're closing 20% of the inbounds that you're receiving, Jimmy. So out of every 5 inbounds, you're closing 1, submitted, processed, it's going to the bank. But you got 4 other leads that with inbounds you're talking to that you couldn't even make a full presentation, or worse, you closed them out on an option, but you needed to follow up with them, correct?
Yes. At that point, do you need a permission, like cannot follow up or something like that.
We're going to get to that in a minute, okay, Jimmy? But
Yes.
the point is, what do we have here? Now it requires you to do what? A follow-up call. And because we have a rich culture in follow-up, because we know there's a lot of money there, we're going to do outbound to that group of people that we are following up. And those people, in my opinion, are more important than taking a new call because they're 5-10 minutes away from just finalizing that application. Sometimes you're just needing the bank account, a beneficiary, one piece of information or another to finalize the app. Correct. But my point is, it requires follow-up. Unfortunately, I would love to say that people are picking up the phone, right? Unfortunately, most people don't. Most people do have a life. So you're going to find that a lot of people, over 50% of people, don't show up for the appointment that you followed up on and agreed on, forgot about it. So whose responsibility is it to call, you or the buyer? In most cases, it's on us, right? We got to follow up. So here's where it gets tricky. Here's where it gets crazy for you, Jimmy. Okay, because you are responsible for this. Does that make sense? Because the CRM doesn't have an API system that's going to block out the DNC numbers. Does that make sense? No way. So we require you to have that responsibility in making sure that you don't violate these guidelines, okay? So now listen up here. Your CRM is going to track every single phone call that you receive, and is going to track every single phone call that you make. Okay? You see, all the green is in. This is the inbound. And when you see a red, this is you as the agent making an outbound. Same thing with the blue. Whether you're making a third-party interview with a carrier or a pharmacy or whatever. But the green is your inbound. If you notice here is the date, June 16, 2023, 4:46 p.m. at 02.8182 milliseconds. You see that? This right here is the exact time that they called in asking for a final expense quote. This is your timestamp. This is the birth date of this lead, okay? Now, from this date and this timestamp, Jimmy, and for all of you guys watching, you can call this person between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. in their respective time zones for 90 days without having to check the National Do Not Call Registry. Does that make sense, Jimmy?
Yes.
So for 90 days, from 8 to 9 p.m., you can call these people. And except for some weekends, you got to look at a list that I will send you. And you can call them to follow up with them on final expense or finish a presentation or collect an application. But what happens after 90 days, Jimmy? Do you know what happens after 90 days?
It expires.
This permission expires. Now, this permission is under the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, otherwise known as TCPA. TCPA basically overrides the Do Not Call registry and grants us permission to call that person back, regardless if they're on the national or state Do Not Call registry. Okay? But after 90 days, ladies and gentlemen, we lose permission to call them. And at that point forward, on day 90, going forward, you need to make sure that this phone number that called in, this number right here, is not on the National Do Not Call registry. Why? because our CRM, and in fact, most CRMs do not have that API system. Every time a record or a phone number comes into the system, it costs us 0.0025 to check the national do not call registry. So obviously, not only do we lose a call, but it costs us with the DNC registry because it's being blocked. So we cannot do that. It's up to you as the agent. And for all of you agents out there that are buying leads and calling people to make appointments, or you're calling old leads and you don't know the day of origination, the time, and you're calling it like a wild person, boy, are you going to be in for a big surprise. So Jimmy, do you have any questions so far?
No, just
Okay.
after 90 days, you just you know, just stop contacting them.
You stop contacting them. If they give you permission to call them back, you got to let them know that their number's on the national do not call registry and you have to ask permission. And if it's on a recording that they give you permission, you can call for the next 30 days. But here's where the problem meets, litigation and violations. Let me share with you guys something. This right here is the population of the US. There's 331 million people as of 2021. Okay? 331 million. How many people do you feel, Jimmy, are on the national do not call list out of this group of people? How many do you think?
Probably
What percentage
over
do you
100
think is on?
million. Probably
Over
half.
100 million? You think
Yeah.
100 million?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me show you what Google says. About 244 million.
Most of the adults, basically.
So if there's, again, 331 million people in the US and 244 million of those folk are on the national do not call list, we can understand that the risk is extremely high, right, Jimmy? Very
Yes,
high.
like I say, most of them are adults. Kids don't worry about that anyway, Yeah,
Now,
you know what I mean? Under
what
18.
is a violation cost an agent?
Probably everything.
Up to $43,000, ladies and gentlemen, for one violation. So imagine if here you are following up on your leads, disregarding the national do not call registry, and you call a number on day 91, literally day 91, and that person happens to tell you, how dare you call me? I'm on the national do not call registry. And you're thinking, but you called us asking for a funeral policy. It's not going to matter because TCPA gave you 90 days to do all the follow-up you wanted on this service. So what do? Well, you know that you have a date that the lead was generated. And every time you make an outbound dial, Jimmy, you'll have the history of this phone number right in front of you. Does that make sense? Every time. So right before you dial, you'll see the first time you call this person, and you'll be able to do the math real quick if you need to check the DNC manually, or if you can make the phone call, correct? You're responsible for this, Jimmy, not me, you. That's one of the reasons that I talked to you about making sure your E&O insurance is in place, and also making sure that your E&O insurance covers these issues in terms of TCPA and DNC. You feel me? Because of the risk is out there. And if it's your responsibility, then you need to be on top of this, right? So now, Besides the fact that each violation is 43,000, there's something else that we have to watch out for. And that is that a lot of people that pick up the phone, they forget that there's two lists. Okay, Jimmy?
Yes.
There's the national DNC, and then there is 12 states in America, as you can see here. And here's the list. Okay, so these states are specific to a DNC. So where's the risk here? If you check your DNC and you check with the national, but if any of the leads that you're calling are in any of these 12 states, and you check the DNC nationally and it's clear it's not on there, but you failed to check the state-specific DNC, guess what happens, Jimmy? Violation, which complicates issues. Our system, our API system, does not work in these states after 90 days because we don't have access at a scale to check a state level. We just don't have access. So we stay out of these states after 90 days. A lot of you guys are not even aware of this specific list. And every single day you're on the phones, making calls like a care in the world, trying to sell insurance, and you have no mechanism in your CRM or much less on your cell phone to detect this simple violation that happens every single day. Did you know about this, Jimmy, yourself before coming to this training today?
Not these 12 states. I know the national registry.
Now, for all of you guys and for all of my agents and people watching here today, for years I have been promoting Aperion. Aperion is accurate. And I would recommend that you do your research, compare it to all the other ones out there, the subscription-based ones, etc. And you're going to find that a lot of other ones are not accurate. And if you're not accurate by 1%, you're off, you're in violation. Aperion is accurate, and I challenge you to vet Aperion against any list out there, against the actual registry, and you're going to find they are accurate every single time. But they only look for the federal, which is the national. They're not checking the state specific. Does that make sense, Jimmy?
Yes.
So if you come across any state that's in those 12 and it's been 90 days, Aperion is worthless because they're not going to pick up the state specific. So what are you going to do in our case? You ain't calling no more. You're going to call it a loss. Make sense? Or else you're going to make that loss of that lead into a bigger problem from you because you're going to potentially face one of these DNC complaints. Does that make sense, Jimmy? So
Yes.
your CRM is designed for you to receive calls, make calls, schedule calls back. Your CRM comes with your script, but it's your responsibility. Okay? And every day we talk about this, so it's not nothing that you'll forget about because it's continual. Because there's something else I want to tell you, Jimmy. We all make mistakes, okay? So in the event you make a mistake and you do find yourself where you called, a client by mistake and they're giving you a hard time, threatening you that they're going to clean you out because you violated their rights of calling them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What you'll be able to show to the judge is a safe harbor defense, okay? Basically, what a safe harbor defense states is that prior to you getting on the telephones, Jimmy, I trained you on this stuff. And we actually did a video here today. It's in writing, it's in paper form, and you'd be able to show to the judge that every day you do what, Jimmy? Your intentions are to what? To follow the guidelines of telemarketing laws, correct? And you're going to show them that by presenting your CRM, showing them all of your call activity. And once the judge sees that, again, you made a mistake. But what I've discovered, because I've seen it personally, is that the judge is very, very easy on people that makes mistakes that are, in this case, honest. But we got to be able to prove one simple thing, that you know this training. Does that make sense, Jimmy? That you're actively doing everything in your power not to make these mistakes, because this would be a mistake on your behalf. Now, imagine for all of you guys watching this, if you don't even know about this. And again, you're being recommended to buying old leads. You're being told they're scrubbed, but the reality, they're scrubbed by some third-party DNC mechanism that is not accurate. Maybe it was accurate a month ago, but it's not in real time. You can maybe find yourself in some, trouble in terms of a violation. And I'm sharing this with all of you because I ask agents all the time if they know the day of their lead birth date, and most don't know. All they know is that they're fresh, but they don't know the exact date that the lead was originated. And that's a very important piece of information that you as an agent need if you're buying leads, because how are you going to know if you need to check the DNC list if you don't know the exact date? Well, if you don't know the exact date, then you're walking on some thin ice, because you can end up calling somebody that knows their rights and is going to make that phone call to a lawyer to look for damages. Does that make sense, Jimmy?
Yes.
So again, for all of you guys watching, I hope this helped you. I will post Aperion's website in the content section. But again, if you go again to aperion.io/DNC, if you're in Pakistan, it's blocked to the country. You'd have to use some form of VPN to access. Aperion lets you check 10 numbers an hour for free. For example, I'll do a random number, just one that's just random. If over 50% of people are on the phone, let's see if this one's on the phone, right? But you get 10 free numbers. This number is not in the national do not call list. But again, we know that Aperion's accurate. 10 an hour, anything over that, I'd recommend you open up an account. Aperion will charge you 0.0025 per record to check the national. But again, stay out of the 12 states that Aperion can't check. So I hope this information helps you. It's helped me over the years to do the research. And this way, you're not dealing with any of these violations that can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. I did a video the other day. A friend of mine, Deryck, he faced a $5 million lawsuit. I'll post that story here in the content section. Check it out. I mean, his story was pretty motivating because, $5 million, wow, that can put most people out of business. So it's good to understand these laws, understand what your rights are, but more importantly, making sure that every time you pick up the phone, regardless if you're going to make a phone appointment or a face-to-face appointment, or you're going to sell them something, or you're going to set up a Zoom, it's a no-no. Even texting them is a no-no. So remember that, guys. So with that said, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Me and Jimmy are going to continue with our training. But if you guys want to join us on one of our meetings, please don't hesitate to call me. Peace.